EFF.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the EFF notes the recent utterances by the former CEO of Eskom, Mr. André de Ruyter, who has claimed that the ruling party is using Eskom as a feeding trough. De Ruyter claims that senior members of the ruling party are part of the group that is milking Eskom through illicit contracts to supply coal to the entity. He further claims that he discovered this theft. He reported it to a particular minister who we now know is Mr. Gordhan. According to De Ruyter, Mr. Gordhan then told him that he must do his work and allow the senior members of the ruling party to loot Eskom. The hypocrisy of Mr. Gordhan would be astounding. For years, he has been claiming to be a clean person, fighting against the so-called elements that instigated state capture in the country. Even his attack on De Ruyter after the interview was hypocritical. Mr. Gordhan has been supporting De Ruyter's destructive reign at Eskom for years, despite all indications that they had employed a very incompetent white man to oversee Eskom. De Ruyter's racism and incompetence notwithstanding, it is the hypocrisy and opportunism of Mr. Gordhan that led the country to where it is now in terms of its energy supply. We condemn Mr. Gordhan's incompetence and his calculated enabling of corruption at Eskom. Thank you very much.
Is the Honorable Gordhan on the platform?
Yes, Chair.
Can we give him an opportunity, honorable members? Honorable Minister, can you respond?
Thank you, Chairperson. In the first instance, several ministers involved with the state visit of President Museveni, which is going on in Pretoria currently. So some of the people that you might require to respond are tied up with that. I left a bit early to attend other matters. Let's come back to some of the comments made by members of the National Assembly. Firstly, on many occasions, I've indicated that we should not trivialize either the energy crisis or corruption as a tool to be used politically as opposed to a cancer.
Order, honorable members. Order, please. Go ahead, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. And we're saying that we need to collectively understand that corruption is a cancer, which we need to fight. And we do that every day in whatever way we can, depending on the evidence that we have before us. Eskom is a critical institution. Yes, criticize one or other party or one or other executive or whatever the case might be. The state capture report has certainly identified who's responsible for the worsening of the performance of Eskom. We are now on a path of recovery, and that recovery is not going to be easy when other forms of corruption continue, and we might call it state capture too as well. The third point, Chair, is that there's a difference between political capital being made out of this issue versus credible evidence which can be placed before the law enforcement agencies. And the question that all of us need to ask ourselves, are all our hands clean? Can all of us say that nobody of any other political party is involved in any form whatsoever in damaging the Eskom performance in Mpumalanga and elsewhere? So some members, Honorable Chair, have a convenient amnesia when it suits them. We are categorical about our opposition to corruption. We bring together law enforcement agencies and the executives of many of the SOEs so that this matter can be tackled in a much more assertive kind of way. But let us also remember that corruption takes place with essentially two key players, insiders on the one hand and outsiders on the other hand, and the outsiders are either multinational companies or companies that are operating within South Africa itself. I challenge every member in this assembly to bring us the names of South African companies who are operating or doing business with Eskom who are engaged in corruption. And then let's tackle them together and ensure that this cancer, as I said, is got rid of. We might also want to remind certain members of a recent book published called The Rogues Gallery that takes us back in history. So let us not pretend that corruption started in 1994. That book records very clearly the kind of history of corruption we've had in South Africa over the years. That does not excuse anything that is going on at this particular point in time.
Thank
The
you.
EFF
Thank you
in
very
particular, and Mr. Paulson likes to smear wherever they get an opportunity, but they need to look in the mirror, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable
on what
Minister.
they've done with the DA in various municipalities.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's your point of order, Honorable Tasha?
Thank you, House Chair. It would have been relevant if you have given me the point of order before King Pravin, your king, have responded. Now, we are taking our time as members of parliament to formulate these member statements of our constituencies, House Chair. The program whip, which is the Honorable, that is sitting there in the bright yellow, she presents that at the programming committee every week. So for ministers not to be here, it is really uncalled for. We have constantly have showed you under
Thank
the
you.
presidency of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa,
Thank you very much, Honorable Member.
not taken their work
You have
seriously,
made your point.
and you have given them time now to log on. I don't know.
Thank
what-
you, Honorable Member.
Because they were not here to listen.
Honorable Ntangwini.
So
Honorable Ntangwini.
who?
Siyabonga mama sizwile.
Wrong. And for you to protect them, it's wrong.
Honorable
It's wrong.
Ntangwini. Honorable Ntangwini. You have
There's a
raised-
tweet that is calling me hey
Honorable
And you will-
Ntangwini.
and stand up and calling me hey. Let him do it. There's some clown saying hey. I want him and his pants to stand up and calling me hey so I can see him. I will show him outside what I will do to him. He must do it.
Honorable Ntangwini. Honorable Ntangwini. Honorable Ntangwini. Honorable Ntangwini. Honorable Chief Whip. I have noted.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Ntangwini. Honorable Ntangwini, I have called you so many times, you refuse to listen. Really, it is totally unacceptable that a member should have a penchant to always disrupt the House. It cannot go on this way, madam. You can't be doing this. No, but you must respect yourself first. You cannot go on like this, Honorable Ntangwini. You are totally out of order. I've been calling your name several times, I'm sure 12 times. You have not been listening. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, House Chair. House Chair. House Chair. The matter that has been raised here that ministers are not attending to member statements, I think it must be put in a proper context. If you say there are no ministers on the virtual platform that are ready to respond to member statements, it is part of our hybrid session and rules that ministers can log in on virtual or they can come here physically. Therefore, if they are not forced to be here physically, they can also log in like you, honorable members, on a virtual platform.
Honorable members.
So I'm therefore saying, House Chair, it must not be a question that they are on virtual. So what is needed here is for them to respond to member statements, of which I think they are going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable Chief Whip of the TA.
House Chair, I rise on Rule 132 of the National Assembly rules around member statements and the purpose of member statements. All that we are asking, House Chair, is nobody is saying that the ministers are wherever and therefore they can't connect anywhere. What we're saying is that we are proceeding with the proceedings of the House. You asked, where are the ministers to respond to statements? You waited for a long time until Minister Pravin Gordhan said he was going to raise their hands. House Chair, it cannot be that our business in this house is hobbled by the inability of the executive to attend to their parliamentary business. And I ask House Chair that you please speak to the leader of government business, whoever they may
Thank you.
be,
Thank you
that
very
this
much,
cannot be
honorable
repeated.
member. Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, honorable members. Yes, it is true that in case ministers and deputy ministers do not attend a session of this nature, it will be a problem.